down here at the pawn shop. One man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
Take me down to Tickletown. Hey, everybody, welcome into the Creed of Crypto live stream. My name is Boi Crypto, and I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host, Crypto Ewok. Welcome into the show. You can see by looking at the thumbnail tonight, we're talking about get to work. Should everybody be allowed to build on PulseChain? We're going to get into the specifics about that because there was a little bit of drama back and forth with some things that went on over the course of this past week. We have so many things to get to. We have some of this news from Matty Allen, actually, last night. That news to me, anyway. I don't know if it was to you, Ewok, but of this little case in South Carolina regarding Hex, which might be interesting to get into for a minute or two. Tons of bullish Ethereum news. We have the SEC dropping the investigation that they were running against Ethereum conveniently right before the ETF is going to actually launch. Just weird how that works out.
Yeah.
And a whole lot more. So welcome in everybody in the chat. We got our producer Take a Break with Jake. He's keeping the chat company. We appreciate it, man. DJ and Moonboy here as always. We had Briz earlier in the chat, and I'm sure more are going to be pouring in as well, even though we are in a ridiculous heat wave right now. Where Ewok and I are. So I don't know if you're out there braving the heat as this summer rages on, but Meta Stang, welcome in. And yeah, Ewok, how are you? How are you feeling on this fine evening?
I'm good. Unfortunately, my company didn't take Juneteenth off like yours did, but just another day, another Wednesday.
Yeah.
Markets are still going sideways like we expected. Kind of trying to stay away from Twitter. I'm just trying to stay away from the toxicity. I check in, I see a couple things, I like a post or I scroll past it. I don't really say a whole lot. But yeah, we've got still some time to go. And I still think we're still in that shakeout phase, 50 weeks to shake out the weekends. I really think, was more, we said it before, but it really goes back to the timing of what Hex or when Hex was launched. And that makes a lot of sense. This is a completely different scenario. So yeah, that 50 weeks to shake out the weekends didn't have much to do with PulseChain, as we can see, because we're still going sideways, but that's all right. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, I don't think that we have had that discussion. I don't think anybody should have looked at that phrase as any kind of a concrete thing. Anyway, I mean, we're essentially with PulseChain, and we'll get into this obviously with the price action, but we are double bottoming right now. You know what I mean? Like we know we haven't actually gone down to the exact bottom that we saw about a year ago, almost a year ago from now. But we're in that range. I mean, we're pretty much there. It's not like it's really that far down. So I mean, that's where we're at right now. And it isn't unique to PulseChain, as we're going to get to. I mean, like a lot of the market, especially altcoins, are bleeding right now. That's just where we're at after the Bitcoin halving here. We've talked about Bitcoin the first half of this year being the most bullish thing that there was, and now we're seeing some things pull back. So we are on the precipice of the ETH ETF actually launching. So it's going to be very interesting indeed. Do us a favor, you guys that are here, like the video, please. Subscribe to the channel if it is your first time visiting Creative Crypto. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's look at the market right now. So we got Bitcoin at 65K. It's kind of pulled back here over the last few days. ETH at about almost 3,600. It has very, very slightly narrowed its gap against Bitcoin. And we've really wanted to see some bullish action from ETH. You know, we haven't seen like any kind of huge sell-off or anything after the ETF announcement. We've actually seen it crawl up against BTC a little bit, but we haven't seen anything like super bullish yet either. And, we've talked about the last few weeks, like, will we see that whenever the ETF actually gets launched, which I believe is coming on the 2nd of July here? I'm curious your thoughts on that. I mean, that's really what we're looking at. I mean, we haven't really been looking at BTC as much as we have ETH. I will mention real quick, I know you're not a fan of them, and that's fine as far as, him not being a fan of Hex or whatever and crapping on Richard Hart products. But Bob Lucas, I think, is very interesting when it comes to the Bitcoin 4-year cycles. And he, every quarter or so, I think, releases like a 40-minute video of like where he's at with everything. And he just released one the other day and felt very strongly about a normal right translated cycle at this point, because as not that I think a lot of people would say that at this point, because we have seen Bitcoin cool off. We've seen things take a little bit more time. And he was thinking, like he actually have a target of 200K BTC next year, which I think all of us would take at this point, which would be very cool. So that's his target, probably midway through next year, as far as the time frame. So I'm interested in your thoughts on the time frame here that we're seeing, because I think a normal cycle is starting to look more likely, and kind of where we could see ETH catch up with BTC. So what do you think here, Ewok?
Yeah, as I've said before, I've never really been a proponent of the left translated cycle. I've said this is going to be the same until it's not, and it's still the same. We haven't seen much difference. We did see a little head start with Bitcoin, only because of the ETF, which was, it's one of those black swan events kind of things, not in a bad way, but in a good way. So, we just got a head start. That's really all it was, but we haven't gotten back to that point yet. I mean, it heated up, and as you can see, it's cooled back down, and it's just, in this channel. So, while I'm seeing more bearish sentiment here on Bitcoin, now we're kind of seeing a little bit more bullish on Ethereum. So, we're still in a channel. However, the green candles are definitely more in favor than the red ones on the ETH chart. So, yeah, again, I don't think there's going to be a change until it's different, and by then we're not going to know anyway. So it's nice to have a crystal ball, but these markets still move the same things, the same emotions, the same washout, the same rinsing of people has to happen in order to get to the point where the liquidity is very thin. There's not a whole lot for sale. People kind of get the wind, and you start to see green candles, and then everybody apes in, up until you get to the point where you jump in a taxi and this guy's trying to tell you to buy Doge or something like that. So, at that point, you should probably take some profits, and, you're reaching, the higher levels during the cycle of that. And then it kind of rinses and repeats. So yeah, nothing really new. I am seeing, like I said, I think because people are priming up for this ETH ETF, you are going to see that. And I still say I'm sticking to my prediction that we'll be over 4,000 by the 1st of July, which is
Wow, really?
coming up soon. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, that would be. I mean, that'd be interesting. I mean, to run up like that. Not that. I mean, it's been super close. I think it's actually been to 3,900, possibly a little bit earlier in this market. I mean, we know that the
that was
PulseChain
May
SAC
20
wallet bought around there. So yeah.
May 27th.
Okay.
It hit 90 or 39.90, 39.75.
Oh, okay. So it
right
pretty
on.
much has hit 4,000 already. Okay.
Just about.
Yeah. So that's about a week and a half from now. So we will see. It would be very interesting to see that happen going into it, see where it trades right after the launch of the ETF. And continuing on, so that's a great point, because I was going to ask you that question about how do you think the price action for ETH is here as the ETF launches on July the 2nd. And also, and this is pretty much just like a huge signal to the market. And, you and I actually said this when this news came down. So it was only, I think, a month ago. It doesn't even feel like that we got this news that, the SEC is launching an investigation into Ethereum. And we had the tweets from Consensus and stuff like that. And we literally said right here on this show, like, oh, okay. I mean, this just reeks of like they are tanking the price of Ethereum so they can buy their bags because they know that something like an ETF is coming further down the line. Now, neither one of us thought that it was going to be approved this month or whenever that approval happened. We thought it was going to be like later this year. That didn't happen. So it makes this whole thing look even more fishy from the SEC, which, I mean, they're not strangers to doing fishy things, of course. Gary Gensler smells a lot like fish, and not in a good way. But this timeline was so quick. I mean, like under a month since they launched an investigation, which I think was just total BS. I don't think that there was ever really any kind of an investigation. No. And then suddenly, okay, they pull it like right before the ETF is about to go live. Like, just doesn't make sense. But thank you for pulling up that tweet from Consensus. They say Ethereum survives the SEC. Today, we're happy to announce a major win for Ethereum developers, technology providers, and industry participants. The enforcement division of the SEC has notified us that it's closing the investigation into Ethereum 2.0. This means that the SEC will not bring charges alleging that sales of ETH are securities transactions. So there you go. I mean, ETH is not a security. I mean, something that Gary has said in the past on video. But we don't actually have the SEC pretty much coming out and admitting it. And I'm sure if you were to get an interview from Gary, you would find out that he would still give you some kind of backhanded thing like, well, we're not admitting to anything here, But yeah, what do you make of this? Because this is huge news, not just for Ethereum, but the industry. I mean, this is huge news for PulseChain. It's huge news for altcoins in general. So what do you make of this?
Yeah, exactly. So you back up a little bit, and you makes you really wonder, did BlackRock have something to do with this? Did somebody that started these funds, did they have a little nudge? Did somebody get a couple favors? I'm not suggesting that there was any bribery going on, but I've seen it before, and we know how all this stuff plays out when there's big money involved, which there is clearly with the people that have started with the ETFs. There's 4 of them, I believe, that are approved on that day.
Right.
Practice. We talk about practice.
Yeah.
And yeah, it makes you wonder if there's really more to it. If they had a little coercing to say, come on, guys, you're going to do this anyway. Just do it now. Let's not drag our feet. Let's just get it done. So to your other point, it does make a good precedent case possibly for PulseChain because it's a clone of Ethereum. It's a fork of Ethereum 2.0. So the things that make Ethereum not a security technically should also make PulseChain not a security because it was a fork of it. Now, will the sacrifice comes into discussion, the other the OA holding the amount that it has not sufficiently decentralized. But again, it only has to fail one leg of the highway. So this could be very helpful as far as precedent goes moving forward. So yeah, it's huge. It's a big decision. And I do agree with you. If Gary were put in front of Congress again to answer questions, is Ethereum a security, yes or no? He still wouldn't answer it as no.
Right.
It's just the way they are. They don't. They still do not want to give clarity with anything. They're just saying they're not bringing charges alleging the sales are securities transactions. That's all. It doesn't. They still haven't classified it that way as a commodity yet. I don't think that classification has been made. Just that they're not going to bring charges. That's you kind of almost. I mean, I know it says it flat out, but you read between the lines there. They're still leaving something open, possibly for the future.
Yeah. They're never going to say anything concrete like that. They're purely just making a move because they know that the ETF is coming in. And, Gensler's not really long for this world. And I don't mean like, something terrible is going to happen to it. But I mean, as far as like his position in government, I don't think so. Will be good to see him go for sure. But yeah, this is big. It's big for Ethereum. It's big for the rest of the market. So this is bull market stuff. I mean, this is basically like the gloves come off and everybody admits we're in a bull market now and the news all turns kind of positive, and that's where we're at. So very good. We just need the Ethereum price to catch up with some of this. So I think we're going to see that here soon. So really good news for sure. Let's move into the PulseChain ecosystem in terms of prices here. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the show. Looking at Pulse, we are at 4 zeros and almost up to a 4.6 now. We've really seen not good price action for ever, really. But back in March, obviously, is when we really had the big pumps. Now, though, we've seen at the beginning of this week, after another, I think it was a red weekly close, we saw Pulse fall back even a little bit more over the last couple of days, now rallying, of course, with the rest of the market on some of this bullish news that we've been seeing. So that is good. PulseX at 4 zeros and almost a 1950 basically. Incentive is at $2.35. We got Hex at 0055 and eHex at 00133 basically. So basically all-time lows for Hex and for the new one, the actual Hex. So if you want to pull up whatever chart you want to, I guess Pulse obviously always makes sense. We can look at the twin towers there, basically, of the chart. But what do you make of where we're at? I mean, like we've obviously been bleeding for quite some time now. And again, the whole market is. I'm not like just picking on PulseChain or anything like that. But I mean, we are in a cool-off period, hoping that by the time we get to the fall, we're already overall, and I'm talking ETH and them lifting all boats. I think that we're going to start to perk up definitely by like September or so of this year all around. So, what do you make of where we're at right now? What do you think our time frame might look like here for Pulse?
More of the same. It really looks like we've got to round that off. I mean, obviously, it almost still looks like we're trending down a little bit more. I haven't seen a rounded off anything yet. So there is potential to come down to at least these support levels of the, 0.00040 almost into here where these support actually held. This would be the next logical point because we've already hit this support here for these candles. So the next support level would be this one right at the 4 level. And then again, if we do double bottom, you're looking down to the 3701 area. So more of the same. DGen Moonboy, he sent us a video this morning. One of the first things that was mentioned in it was a quote from John Maynard Keynes that says, markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. And I thought that was just very fitting for what we're seeing right now. And that's why markets actually get shaken out. So, it was just very, like I said, looking at this just cascade of red candles made me chuckle when I read that little quote from him. So I thought it was pretty fitting.
And he's definitely right about that. I mean, the markets in either direction can do things to drive you absolutely insane. And it's a matter of you being able to, just keeping both your hands on the wheel and not capitulating, basically. Yeah, it has been a very wild ride a very tough ride over the last few months for PulseChain for sure. But I mean, to your point, you said this at the top of the show, and we talk about this frequently. You said about like dodging things on Twitter, or like seeing things every now and then that you almost engage with and don't. I find that it kind of depends on the day, kind of where you're at with that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't really tweet. It's just not. I'm not good at it. I don't want to be good at it. It's just not fun to me, and it's just too much. But I do value for sure some of the content that some guys put out. Obviously, some people are just like infighting and stuff. We'll kind of get more to the infighting thing here, I think, in a bit with some of the topics we're going to talk about. But it really depends on the day. Like sometimes I can see stuff on there and it just rolls right off my back. And then other times it's not like it gets to me to where I'm like sitting there. I'm never in a zone. I'm rarely, I should say, in a zone. I mean, we're all human where I'm reading it all day and pissing myself off further. I mean, we all have bad days where like you accidentally fall into that trap, I think. Yeah. But some days I'm able to just like see it, move on. It doesn't bother me or anything. And then some days it's like, this is just turning me off. I don't want to see this stuff. You know what I mean? It just depends, I think, on what else you have going on in your life that day,
Sure. Yeah. Moods can definitely affect how you're interpreting the tweets, right? For me, this being my this is my second bear cycle, I guess.
Right.
Wait, yeah, this will be the third bull cycle. So my second bear. It rolls off my back pretty easily. Like I don't pay it a whole lot of mind. I try not to get myself involved with any of it. I'll read it and chuckle and think some of it's funny. And sometimes I message to you and be like, look at this bozo, and or whatever it may be, just some of the comments that we kind of chuckle about, but don't get involved. I mean, that's the best way to not let it bother you, because then what happens is then you get involved, then your name gets dragged through the mud, then they start throwing arrows at you, and that's obviously no fun. Community drama is right, Briz. There's always something, right? And
Briz trying to start some with us the other day, letting us know what other people say about us on some other channels.
We'll talk about that later. I think. I know, but make sure you use your ideas tonight, not somebody else's. There.
Yeah, I will do my best. Yeah, okay. I'll make sure the proper people get credit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, But yeah, again, like I said, you gotta let this stuff just roll off and not let it bother you. Don't get involved, because then again, it just becomes something that is pointless, right? You're getting yourself into something that you just don't need, and it's not enjoyable for anybody.
Yeah, you can get down a real bad rabbit hole real quick. So I would say to try to stay off as much as you possibly can. Let's get into a couple other topics here. So yeah, definitely some more cleaning out for PulseChain here over the next couple of months. But I'm hoping that we have seen the worst of it. I've hoped that many times in the past, and you never know. I mean, it's going to be a slow slog for not just PulseChain, but a lot of these altcoins getting out of this range, I think. So
for sure.
Keep our head up, and if the market gets you down, just maybe don't pay attention to it too much for a couple of days and do something else. So if you're liking the stream so far, do us a favor, guys. Hit the like. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Another piece of news from the SEC. This is crazy good news. So it's funny. Again, we talk about like being in a bull market now. All this news seems to come off a lot more positively. But the SEC head of Crypto Assets Enforcement Division stepped down. His name's David Hirsch. He'd been there for about a decade. And when I first shared this with you and we were talking about it, it's not like we keep tabs necessarily on who these people are and everything. We know who Gensler is, obviously, but as far as everybody within the commission and stuff, we don't know that. But looking further into this guy, we were like, okay, I assume this is good news, but is it good news? Well, yeah, it definitely is, because he stated that he wanted to bring more and more legal action as much as possible. He literally said that. He said, like, well, one of my goals here was like to bring as much legal action as possible. It's like, dude, okay. Basically what we say all the time, throw all the shit you can at the wall and see what sticks. It's the same MO that Gensler has had. They literally said it. They just said, bring as many cases as you possibly can. And hope you get lucky and win a few and see which ones fall through the cracks. But overall, it was a relatively abrupt exit, I guess, by this guy, David Hirsch. The SEC, the last I looked, had not commented on it yet, but this has to be a good thing. I think that we're maybe seeing the beginning of the end of some of this regime. Hopefully, of course, we're rooting for a non-democratic win in the fall here in the U.S. for the election. Not really anything political, just because it would be better for monetary systems of crypto. Yeah.
Yep.
What do you make of this? Because I think this is another key point. We're seeing, the SEC just lose everywhere left and right. We're seeing David Hirsch step down here, which is fantastic. What does this lead you to, and what do you think we could see with the SEC over the next 12 months or so?
Well, I just find it odd that they still haven't addressed it. And this was as of yesterday or day before. I think Monday, a couple days ago. Yeah. So I haven't seen any them addressing it at all, nor have I heard about any kind of person stepping in to replace him. So but it's good if the guys that are willing to, again, like you said, throw shit against the wall, see what sticks. That just means they're going after as many things as they can, hoping on a ratio of some sort to be winners. And obviously they've not had a great track record here with their last ones and winning. So maybe somebody got tired of that and said, you're making us look bad. Is kind of the way I saw it, because apparently this is the guy that was in charge of gathering those together to do that, because it was his quote. Where was it? It said something about Hirsch was adamant about the SEC's willingness and emphasis on legal action. So
right,
they had seemingly made good on that expectation with an increased focus on enforcement action. So, I mean, that was pretty much what he was in charge of. So maybe they thought, well, this may not be the route we need to go down. We're not that they're trying to make friends, but I think the perception of them actually trying to protect the people is not being met or made, so
right.
I think they kind of have to switch their optics a little bit to at least make people think that they do have our best interests in mind. And clearly they don't, because the people they've gone after, they're not helping anybody at this point. So a lot of these lawsuits you end up seeing where they take a portion of what was meant to go back to the people that suffered. That's the big thing. A lot of these, you're taking these major fines, and that comes out of reparations that are designed to go back to the holders that lost money. Well, when they take that fine out of there, that's less that the people are actually getting back, the ones that got hurt. It just shows that they really don't have the people's best interests at heart. So I'm glad to see him gone. Hopefully we don't get something worse. We have to kind of keep hoping for that, but
well, I'm checking his name as you're speaking, because I wanted to see if there were any further developments, and there are. Actually, this actually happened like later on Monday, and this is very funny. So he instantly left, and this was probably the plan all along, and joined something called Pump.fun, which is a crypto entity. Launch a coin that is instantly tradable for under $2 in one click at Pump.fun. They have 98,000 followers. I'm not joking here. It's an actual news release. It's confirmed by Binance News. I saw too. They said, after our most recent announcement, we've gotten numerous inquiries about. Oh wait, no, that's not the right one. Where the hell? Yeah, we are excited to announce our new head of trading, David Hirsch. After months of conversations with some other person, David came to the realization that his work as a regulator was no longer fulfilling, and he had to start a new chapter. And what's better than doing the very thing you love? Believe it or not, but David has launched over 100 coins himself. I don't know what the hell is going on, because then they say he usually cheats right after I don't know what they're talking about.
That's got to be a different person.
I don't know. No, it's definitely not a different person. They're like right here. Binance News, former SEC official David Hirsch joins Pump.fun as a trading director. It's definitely not a different person. And I don't think it's a joke either.
So I wonder if he was planted as an insider or something.
I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of stumbled across this. as we're speaking. I'm trying to see if there's anything about
I found
former
it.
SEC official. Okay, here's Cointelegraph. David Hirsch saying he's not joining Pump.fun.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Rumors have been circulating that the recently retired SEC
Okay.
veteran is taking on a private role. David Hirsch was served as yada, yada, yada. In a message to Cointelegraph, the recently retired veteran confirmed claims associating him with claim is false. I have not announced my next role, but it is not with a meme coin platform. Then it goes on to say, here, let me just share this well, that way we can all see it here. I accidentally stopped sharing, so I had to reshare.
We don't have to go too deep into this, but
no, but it just says
apparently it's not true.
The next thing says misinformation or epic troll. June 19th, rumors began circulating. Post began by congratulating Hirsch on his new role. After months conversation, David came to this is what you read.
Yeah.
And then it says the rumors led Binance team to congratulate Hirsch.
That's what I saw there. Wow. And they let the tweet's still up from Pump.fun, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he claims it's not true. They haven't taken it down, so
it's probably not true.
Something to keep an eye on. Anyway,
pretty funny.
No biggie.
Pretty funny. So we'll see what comes of that and who does replace him with the SEC. If we even end up paying attention to that piece of news, maybe it won't matter because the SEC will just kind of be an afterthought. I mean, they're already kind of becoming one anyway. So
right.
Yeah, interesting to see another domino fall though, for sure, from the SEC.
For sure.
So let's see where to go from here because we got so much stuff. I tell you what, I want to do this so we make sure we get into like what the main course was of this show. And that is, Richard Hart yet again, and he's been on this mission for quite some time when it comes to PulseChain, talked about it as well with Hex and things like that, always saying the phrase, like, I don't work for you. He's commissioned to these products, but he doesn't, do everything or work for any of the investors, obviously. But, recently he tweeted about it, talking about like, people need to go build on PulseChain. And, we a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, he was referencing like having good SEO for PulseChain and that people can get to work on that, just different things that he floats in his tweets. But he implored people over the last week to do their own work. It's your chain, blah, blah, blah. No expectations from him. So it's interesting because then not far after that, we see, not that this is building on PulseChain necessarily, but the Dex Screener gets updated for PulseChain. So Too Spooky, he of course, Tang Gang fame. I don't know if it was I think it was just him. Updated the Dex Screener listing for PulseChain, referred to it as Pulp Chain throughout the description. I will say, the actual description outside of that, I thought was actually really, really good. Like they were calling it Pulp Chain, but I mean, I thought it was really well written and hit on like a bunch of good points about Pulse Chain actually. So I did think that was really, really good. It had an orange splash thing over the Pulse logo, which was pretty funny. I thought we're probably going to argue about this, but also other tokens. So yeah, Too Spooky basically paid out of pocket to update this on his own. I think if you look, it's only like $300 or $400 to like update a token. Yeah, on it. I mean, it's kind of like Wikipedia. I mean, I guess that's free, but I mean, yeah, you just pay a fee on there and you can update it however you want to. Some hardcore OGs and stuff like that thought that it was like disgraceful and distasteful and horrible and pearl clutching and all that. Some people thought it was pretty funny. I did think it was kind of funny. I mean, after all, I guess to me, it's like, it's just a Dex Screener listing. It wasn't like, anything on the actual chain. But then it all got swapped back. I don't know if you even saw this, but like a day later, I think somebody went in and erased all that stuff, overrode everything, I guess, that Too Spooky did, wrote a pretty porous description. Somebody commented that it looked like it was written by AI, and I thought the exact same thing. Linked a bunch of stuff that hasn't been active for like 2 years, linked some Twitter account that isn't even like, active or anything like that. This whole thing is not as big of a deal as I think some people are making it out to be. But I did at least find what Too Spooky did to be better than, what the status quo is, which is kind of just bland and boring and doesn't have a lot of live things going on. So What did you make of it? I know you weren't really a fan of, calling it PulseChain and stuff like that, but I did think the description he wrote was really, really good. So I don't know. What do you make of this whole thing?
So my thoughts were that I agree with you. The description was fine had he just left PulseChain in there, whatever. Update it to, the real name. It doesn't look good. It's just bad optics, I thought. I'm surprised that it hadn't been done, and I think more people didn't even realize that you could do that. Maybe they did, but he's created enough tokens on there that they've probably found it along the way or whatever, and done it for others. But it's kind of worrisome though that anybody can go in and just change it for $300. I mean, you're going to start a war back and forth on some things that, if you want let's just use, for example, something that is in the middle of a takeover, right? And you're changing the links to websites. Whose do you use? Well, no, you're going to use ours. Well, no, we're going to change it back. So, I mean, this kind of, it seems like it could go on and on forever, I think. There were rumors also, we'll get to something else too, that was kind of along those lines, but several of the tokens on PulseX were pointing to Go Pulse, that exchange rather than the PulseX chain. The reason I had heard for that was because of the IPFS links. If you point to that link and it changes, then it becomes a non-working link. And obviously you don't want a non-working link in your description of the coin. So you're going to send it somewhere that's stable and not going to change. So anyway, I kind of get that, whatever. Yeah, I was not a fan of PulseChain or the little orange splash or anything like that. If you're going to update it right. We're at the point now where we're trying to get outside eyes. We're trying to get adoption. We're trying to get more people on this chain. Some people are going to look at it as that's funny, or what does the orange mean? Yeah, maybe they'll look into it and then they'll, go that way. Who knows? I wasn't a huge fan. I mean, it was kind of funny, but more seriously, I don't want to say it does more damage, but it just didn't look good. That's all. I mean, I'm not overly concerned. I'm not losing sleep over it, and it just didn't look good. Was my opinion.
I think the bigger point that you just made isn't so much like that this happened or didn't happen or whatever. It's like the Dex Screener thing. Like that anybody could just do this, go back and forth like that.
Yeah.
I think it shows more Dex Screeners like they're highly incentivized now that we're in a bull market and stuff like that to collect fees of people doing that. I mean, imagine like all these meme tokens and stuff like that launching and like different people just going in to edit it and paying that fee. They're not going to give a shit. I mean, why not? So to me, it's even more of a non-issue because of that function itself. You know what I mean? Like if Dex Screener is just that easy to edit and anybody can, it's like Wikipedia, it's like everybody used to roll their eyes, you'd be back in college or whatever, and you use Wikipedia to help write an article or something like that. Now, of course, we just have AI, but I mean, people would say like, oh, what'd you do? Go on Wikipedia and like criticize it and stuff like that. Well, I mean, Dex Screener may just carry the same sentiment kind of with it if that's what you can do. You know what I mean? So to me, it's just Dex Screener. Like it's not that big of a deal. I found it funny. I thought it was in pretty good taste. I thought it was funny. I'm with you. I would have rather just like kept it with PulseChain because he really did write a good description. I like that.
Right. And that's what got it taken down, I think, because it said PulseChain. Somebody could have just replaced those descriptions with PulseChain and it would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah. What I find funny about this comment that you just put up is like, look at the things that Richard Hart has done over the last couple of years. Like, I am going to say this, and I'm sorry, I completely agree with Too Spooky and anybody that has said this from the Tang Gang. Like, all this stuff about, like, these guys just need to grow up. Like, what are you doing out here? Like, look at what Richard Hart has done over the last couple of years. Like, and I know, like, some of it was purposeful, like some of the posing and the Red Bull can and all this stuff. And it's funny, and I didn't mind really Richard Hart doing that stuff either. So, I mean, I don't know if functional crypto is being serious about that, but some of the people that are like, to me, it's just like, I don't know how you can clutch your pearls at this and, be okay for some certain things that Richard Hart's done over the last couple of years. So I'm okay with both. I'm just saying that. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Well, again, my point was and Briz just said it too. I'm not losing sleep over it. It's not something I got worked up about. I just, I had an opinion. I didn't think it was the best move that could have been made. But I wasn't up in arms about it or anything like that. So yeah, that's it.
I will say this, and this is something I really feel good about. Like this battle, whatever you want to call it, between like Tang Gang guys, Atropa guys, Hex OGs that want nothing to do with any of this and think it all looks bad for the chain and blah blah blah. I think that this is fantastic. Like all of this stuff, like Corey Costa the other day, and I'm not calling him out. I'm just stating it because he tweeted it. That's all. But he talked about like, we need unity and all these things. I don't think that really matters. I mean, like, yeah, I understand you don't want to see people fighting and stuff like that, and you want to have like somewhat of a unified message. But like, look, like it is an absolute dumpster fire out there, like for attention, like on Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that. We have PulseChain has the most dedicated like streamers, tweeters, content creators, like more than any other chain out there. And I think like the more vibrant, whatever you want to call it, trailer park trash-ish, whatever you want to say, the community is, and there's more stuff like that out there, and people see all these things going on and all this attention around it. The thing that you don't want is no one talking about you. Right. That's what happens to like, who cares about like Polygon, Matic, and Polkadot and stuff like that? I have no idea about anything going on with those chains whatsoever. Now, and Solana at least like had a season and people were building on it because it was kind of just like the de facto, kind of contrarian play from last cycle. But I mean, like, there's not really a lot out there that's getting a lot of attention, like more than what PulseChain's getting, and people are going to see that stuff.
Right. And that leads me back to, what Richard Hart was doing and how many people were saying that he was a scammer, but it was still getting the word out there, right? People were talking about it, whether it was good, bad, or anything. There's still free publicity, no matter how you look at it. As long as people aren't getting out of hand, I completely agree with you. You almost need that type of engagement back and forth, because if everybody was getting along and kumbaya and this and that, people, it's not exciting.
It isn't.
So you almost do need that. Unfortunately, I mean, that's just the world we live in. You do need that type of friction and competition, and our group is better than your group, and here's why. And it does stick out, and people are drawn to that. People are drawn to the drama. They really are. And like I said, no advertisement is really bad advertisement as long as you're getting the word out there and people are looking into it and be like, what's going on over here? They're looking. So that's first step.
I feel really fortunate that all this stuff is going on, while prices are down. You know what I mean? Like before the retailers really come in and ETH gets to a certain price, we may see some funds being rotated in and stuff like that. While we're here right now, I'm just glad that this whole thing is being built out, really. And, you can hate Tang Gang, you can hate the Atropa stuff, whatever. I definitely don't hate either, and I'm exposed to both of them. But I just think that this kind of passion is something that's going to really help us thrive as the bull market gets raging on. You know what I mean? So,
agree.
I'm in favor of it. Anyway, so let's transition on to this. So this was really interesting. We're going to start getting into some nuclear herbs, legal stuff here in a moment. But Richard Hart the other day, and this is kind of fascinating because we've only really seen him acknowledge publicly, like on Twitter, the SEC case, I think one other time. If now he of course has gone on tweet storms about like crypto regulation, crypto lawyers, tweeting out tips and stuff like that, citing case law and all these things. We've seen that just kind of in a vacuum, not talking about anything specific. But we really only saw him reference this SEC thing back in January when he announced, and it was a very bullish day and people got really excited about it. We saw a lot of money bridging in and stuff. But when he announced that like he has a team of 11 lawyers, he's taking on the SEC to fight for crypto and everything, we really hadn't seen him acknowledge this until this tweet on Sunday, which I thought was interesting that he did do it. And I'm curious, I guess, as to why. I'm not saying he shouldn't have. And it wasn't, anything crazy. It was just kind of a short tweet. He said, I don't know if you have it out. Yeah. He says the next exciting step in the SEC's lawsuit against the open source Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX publishing code and I is the SEC's response to the motion to dismiss. It's due in just a few weeks, July the 8th. Then our response to their response is due a month after. Code is speech. It's interesting. I don't know. I saw somebody commenting about, like, is he trying to help make people more aware of the time frame, which I think is, I mean, clearly he's talking the time frame here, and maybe airmailing something or trying to, we always talk about like the code that's within his tweets and stuff like that and what he's really trying to say. But yeah, what do you think his intention was with this? And then we'll kind of like galaxy brain it a little bit more and look at what Nuclear Herbs then just did say after it. But yeah, I don't know. I was surprised to see him tweet this myself, and I know some other people were too. So what did you make of it?
Well, I mean, I really think he's just saying things are possibly going to get exciting. Pay attention to where we're at, kind of thing. Let me see here. Yeah, it's like just a few weeks. So he's saying, things are about to get exciting. I didn't read more into it, like on that day something, funds are going to be deployed. I'm not seeing that in this. I think he's just, by him saying exciting step, he may know something. He may, his lawyers may know something. I doubt the SEC is showing their hand yet at this time.
Right.
But they could have a very good idea. There could be some discussions behind closed doors that, obviously we're not going to know about those or be privy to them at all. But he does say, then our response to their response. So, I think he's just trying to remind people that, this isn't going to last forever. We're getting close to that date. Things are about to get exciting. Depending on what they say, will depend on what we say. So, I think it's just a reminder. And he's probably excited to get this over with too. I think, just not knowing Richard, but knowing his behaviors kind of, I think he's probably like a little school kid that this like, all right, let's get this going.
Right.
It's been long enough. We're just wasting time now. The market's about to get exciting. Let's get this over with if we can. Right. So I think that's kind of what he was getting at, just to kind of point people in a direction to be like, hey, keep an eye out. This could get pretty good. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sure he's trying to airmail, like when something's going to happen positively coming up soon. It's just, I did find it intriguing for him to directly say it. So let's take a look. We'll kind of just skim through Nuclear Herb's reaction to that, because I was really interested, again, because some people were kind of confounded at RH, again, because he hasn't really talked about it directly too much, why he did it. So Herb said, I'll have something on the PulseChain Law School probably on July 10th explaining whatever BS the SEC puts in their response brief. This is to the motion to dismiss, of course. He said, I don't often make predictions because I've been surprised too many times in the past, both good and bad, both by good and bad lawyers, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and make a few based on nothing but my gut feeling and the tone of some of the SEC's previous filings. I'm interested to see how they defend their complete and utter failure to plead fraud properly in accordance with the federal rules of civil procedure, because they really can't. A lack of facts will do that. I expect some half-assed Weasley nonsense because they know they can't ever prove fraud, but they don't want to agree to dismiss that claim. They'd rather let the judge toss it later to save face. Remember, the SEC gets the benefit of the doubt at the motion to dismiss stage, meaning that if there's any reasonable way to construe the complaint as though the SEC didn't royally F up, the judge has to give them the point for now. It means nothing for the rest of the case. It's just a procedural thing at this stage. I also predict they'll spend almost zero time on RH's freedom of speech argument. Why? Because they don't consider it a viable legal theory. Why? Because there's no real court precedent for it. So rather than spend a lot of time arguing it, which might be seen as giving it credibility, that's a good point, they'll briefly address it in a dismissive and arrogant manner, like they're annoyed they even have to discuss it at all. It would be cool if RH could get some interesting precedent here, wouldn't it? Regardless, the SEC's biggest hurdle and the one they absolutely have to clear in order to move on is the personal jurisdiction over Richard. That's the main thing Herbs has talked about all along. This is where they'll spend most of their brief, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they try to introduce things outside the pleadings, which is not allowed, but it may be the only shot they have since their complaint does a shit job on the issue. Curious to see how this plays out and whether any of the above come true. We'll know in a few weeks. So I do love the fact that Herbs is talking about the personal jurisdiction still just being the huge, the big sticking point. It's like, it's why, this potentially being dismissed is at least a conversation rather than an eye roll theory. I mean, has always been a stretch. So, what do you make of the reaction of Herbs here to RH's tweet, though?
Just a smart dude. He, again, these are just all his predictions from his experience. So I do agree with the one thing that he said was the freedom of speech thing. They don't want to address it because they don't want to give it credibility, because they know if they do, it could be kind of construed back against them later. And when you really dig down into this stuff, it is freedom of speech. Speech is, blockchains are speech, essentially. They're transmissions that are permanently recorded on the blockchain, and you should have freedom to transact. So in turn, it does become speech. It does become that they don't want to go down that road, I don't think. So yeah they're not going to do it. And again, this jurisdiction thing is going to be the biggest thing. If they can't prove jurisdiction, then the other one goes away as well, which we'll talk about the other one from South Carolina. Right. But unfortunately, it's happening first. So, that's kind of where we're at right now. He's so well thought out. I wish, well, we'll get to that when we talk about the other thing, but I really don't have much to add to this one. You pretty much read through it. He's very to the point. There's not a whole lot of takeaways because he puts it all out there. He doesn't leave a lot to question of what he's thinking. So yeah, I just think, he'll give a nice response there on the 10th. And I'm sure it'll be well thought out. We'll see a interesting rebuttal from him.
It's going to be. I'm really excited to see the responses from the SEC and then the response back from RH's team. So going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Because if this whole thing goes away based on the jurisdiction argument with it, which if this is news to you or you don't know why the jurisdiction thing is so big, it's basically because the SEC just cited that Hex was purchased by a lot of people on Uniswap. Uniswap has at least one developer that lives in the Southern District of New York, where they are, and at least one investor within Hex lives in that district too. And again, the joke I always make is, you could probably say the same thing about Omaha, Nebraska, or wherever else in the United States. So it's just a very, very large stretch. And of course, RH, not somebody who lives in America either, and did not live in America at that time. So, so we'll see. We've always it still was even questionable whether they even actually ever served the guy. That was actually in huge question for quite some time. But eventually, go ahead.
No, continue your thought. This is Richard just tweeted something that's going to kind of lead us right in
the South Carolina thing, I think.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I just saw that too. So and that was pretty much where I was at with it. So interesting to see him acknowledge that stuff. And so this whole new wrinkle, and we'll get into this little lawsuit in South Carolina that I did not know anything about until last night when Matty Allen and the boys Brizology, I know you've been in the chat tonight. You were on that stream last night too. But Johnny Chaos was on there for a bit, Crispy Man and Toby won. Matty Allen talking about this frivolous lawsuit from a kid that, and I'm not going to get into same thing. And I kudos to you, Briz, if you're still watching, and you guys that were on the stream last night, you guys specifically said, don't go out to try to dox this guy. Don't go out and try to ruin his life or all this stuff, which unfortunately some people did do.
Yep.
I saw, which really sucks. But when you fight back that way to somebody who's fighting you, like the way that they are undercutting you and fighting in this manner, like it doesn't help matters to just match it that way. But anyway, aside from that, so this lawsuit out of South Carolina, this kid basically, this is public knowledge basically, but he lost like $400 investing in Hex, and is trying to actually file like a class action lawsuit in response to this. And again, anybody can sue anybody. It doesn't really matter. You can claim anything and sue somebody. It doesn't. You can do whatever you want to do. So, kid hires an attorney, and whoever that attorney is, like, makes that lawsuit. And apparently, this coming Tuesday, so like 6 days from today, is an important date in that case. I don't even remember what exactly it is. I think it, like, a judgment could be entered or whatever. And I don't even remember everything that the kid is alleging, but basically that it's security and stuff like that. But again, this is on the state level. It's not federal. It's not the SEC. But to kind of give some outline here, in case this is news to anybody, I would encourage you to, in addition to us, watch that Matty Allen stream from last night, because those guys covered it really, really well. If something would happen in this little wee lawsuit in South Carolina, that would definitely not deem anything a security, or the call Hex a security or anything. Right. All it would do is give the SEC a little wee bit of ammo to say, like, oh, well, this judge potentially in South Carolina deemed it to be a security because the lawsuit by this kid went unopposed. So we've got that little feather in our cap. That's basically what it would be. That doesn't even necessarily mean that the judge in the actual case would err on that side of it or anything. And I'm sure RH's attorneys are well aware of this and have plans about that anyway. But again, Matty's stream last night was centered around getting a large amicus brief to be filed by an attorney that he's already contacted and is willing to do this work apparently in South Carolina. I'm not here to talk about, like, let's shit on Matty for, trying to get money from Whales and Hex to pay for this or anything. I'm not really interested in that. I'm behind this effort, and I think it's fine. I've talked a lot, but let's get your thought on what this is, Ewok. Because again, I didn't even know about this. You probably just found out about it as well. I don't recall this. It was filed in 2022. But what do you make of this? The Matty Allen, looking to get, because right now the reason that Matty's doing this is because there is no opposition to this kid's lawsuit. So right. I don't know. We'll look at Nuclear Herbs reply to that as well to color in the pages a little bit. But yeah, what do you make of this thing?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is the default has been entered against him after the court somehow authorized service by telegram message, tweet, email, and some other way of contacting him. Right. He never even acknowledged it, replied, nothing. So did he see it? Well, we don't know. So how do you? That's my biggest question: is how do you hold somebody in contempt if you didn't properly serve them? With the SEC, he did acknowledge it. He did get a team of lawyers. He did appear when they were supposed to, things like that. But what if he really didn't? Like, how does this even exist? That's my first question. If you don't serve somebody properly, you can't bring them to court. You can't expect them to be there. I don't understand how this is even allowed to continue. Now, again, this is a state thing. My original thought when I saw all this is, why aren't we paying Nuclear Herbs to write us some sort of amicus brief? I think
he's not down there.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to be from South Carolina.
Well, true, I guess.
He's a lawyer. Lawyers can operate in any state they want. I think I would rather see him get even if it's half off, he could probably take the time to write it for 50 grand. I would rather see somebody like him and his knowledge and thoughtfulness, who knows about it, write this rather than some half-assed lawyer in South Carolina just because they're there. That was my original thought.
Okay, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Like, to my knowledge, and what Matty said, and I think he is correct, you do need a South Carolina attorney to file this. So I don't think the intention is necessarily, well, maybe it is, for that guy in South Carolina to write it all. Like, I'm sure it's like, hey, look at the one. Well, what? Like, he's not allowed to look at the one that was filed for in the SEC case. Like, I'm sure he's going to have resources.
Well,
I'm sure it's not going to be like, hey, figure this out, dude. We don't know. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I just think he has to file it. That's all.
He can use that one as as a basis to probably start with, and who knows, he may just submit that and under his name. The problem is, I think, the cost, and again, the problem is when this was brought up as well, is when you ask somebody that something needs to be filed by Tuesday, that means they have to drop what they're doing and put their other cases on hold, and that's gonna be expensive, right? You're taking their time away from other things. So, I don't know. I feel that if Richard did know about it, he would have had somebody from his team address it, or at least request a continuance on it until after this case started or whatever. He's already paying them. I don't understand why. Maybe none of them are from South Carolina. He didn't want to add anybody else. Who knows? There's a lot of things that could be, why did this happen, or whatever. But I don't know. I don't see much coming of it. I really don't. This guy bought the top, probably sold the bottom. He didn't lose that much money.
Right.
And Nuclear Herbs even says, he says SEC Rule 5 and some South Carolina securities laws that he's never even heard of would be on the table. So, it seems like some two-bit lawyer is just trying to get a class action lawsuit to see what they can get out of this. And I don't know if you just let it go. What does it really mean? Because once the federal thing is settled, then that probably causes precedent of that one to be thrown out, or give it some merit if we were to go that route. I honestly think this is a waste of time, because
you and Briz, this is kind of what Briz was saying on the show last night. I saw. You think it's a waste of time to even take it on in any fashion?
Well, I mean, I think you get someone to go in there and say, there's a current case right now. We need to push this date out to see what happens with it, and that's it. I
don't think anybody's going to do that. I don't know that that's good. I mean, because at that point you're talking about employing an attorney, basically. Which, let me just real quick. I want to read this part from Nuclear Herbs on this little case, because I think that this gives some good detail. He said Richard has not appeared in the case. Default has been entered against him after the court somehow authorized service by Telegram message, like you said, which that just does not add up at all to me.
Right.
Tweet, email, and some other dumb stuff. Since I've never talked to Richard, I have no idea why he didn't respond, but I can guess that if you had to pick one of the two cases to defend, it would be the one filed by the SEC and not some hot dog vendor in a Lowe's parking lot. It's conceivable that appearing there also, and this is what I was thinking, it's conceivable that appearing there might also create issues with RH's personal jurisdiction argument in New York, but you'd have to ask his legal team about that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're aware of this. Like, there's no way his current attorneys are not aware of this. And if that could put him in more, not danger, obviously. If that could put any more danger into the SEC case, then why even acknowledge that one? You know what I mean?
Right.
But he did say there is a real danger in having that court issue a declaratory judgment that it hexes a security, because if you've been to PulseChain Law School, you know that nothing this South Carolina judge is binding in the New York case, but we know that the SEC has conveniently left out important facts in recent cases. So do we trust the SEC to be honest this time around? Definitely not. There's a hearing approaching fast to whether to certify the case as a class action. Since there is no opposition to that motion, it will very well may be granted. The danger is that the court also considers the issue of whether hexes a security, which again at this point is uncontested by anyone. And that's why Maddie's wanting this amicus brief to be put in anyway. So,
sure.
I mean, I think that I see no issue with Maddie trying to coordinate this. He also is asking for Wales to do it. If
Sure.
they come up with the money, okay. Yeah, that amount of money seems kind of asinine, I would say. But again, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, like if they're this South Carolina guy and you're just like, hey, you've got a week to figure this out, and we need you to do this, and he has other plans. He's not even trying to deal with this thing. So, I agree with what Maddie said last night. I mean, I think it's pretty much only upside. I think that this is good that he's coordinating this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know people have gotten upset with Maddie about like, oh, this Maddie token and stuff like that. I don't look at this as some kind of like.
This has nothing to do with Maddie token at all.
No, it doesn't at all. But I mean, people are linking it like, oh, there's Maddie asking for money again.
Right.
I'm just saying what other people are saying. To me, I'm fully behind this effort, and I think that I would put time into this to at least have something there that Richard's not even in control of. Like, and I think he may be acknowledging that here tonight. I'm not sure,
right.
But
so
yeah,
let's go to that. Let's go to that tweet.
Yeah, as you guys were mentioning in the chat, RH tweeting a bit here. Yeah, and Briz,
Yeah,
I think put one of them in there.
And so Richard just said some people matter a lot more than others. There's guys out there that take personal risk in order to make the world a better place. They put their face and their name on things. Some hexagons really keep their eye on the ball, throw conferences, stream all the time, sue evil. And then he says, shout out to the unsung heroes. So that's definitely, a shout out to Maddie, even if it was just throw conferences. But I this is a very nice compliment to what he's doing. Obviously I can't donate to it. I don't, everybody's at the bottom right now. I could throw $100, $200 in probably and not really worry, but it wouldn't be more than that. And I don't know how far that would go.
Right.
But I agree. I don't disagree with what Maddie's doing. I just think it's a lot of money. And to what end, so yeah, I
get it.
Yeah, this has, and to the people out there that are like, oh, Maddie's scamming money or whatever. I've never believed that Maddie has taken a dime from anybody in bad terms. I know even when he was doing the conferences, he was figuring out how much it cost him. That's exactly how much that he wanted to raise. And if he did have extra, he gave people extra stuff in their goodie bag kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So he made sure people got the value of what he raised back, and didn't make anything on it himself. So yeah, again, shout out to him. He goes over and above all the time. So I don't think there's anything malicious about what he's doing at all.
I agree. It definitely seems expensive. But we're not really the ones paying it. So, and again, Maddie's just asking for whales to do it. I mean, they could not, maybe they won't step up. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know.
Yeah. And what happens if they don't, right? I mean,
Yeah.
What happens if we don't raise the money? Maddie's not going to put it up himself.
Right.
And does the lawyer need to be paid before he even starts?
I'm sure at least a good sum.
A good retainer, right? Something to get started with. So
yeah.
I mean, this is already Wednesday, he's got 6 days pretty much, or I guess probably 2 or 3 days to collect the money so that this person can get working on it. Again, it's very last minute and it sucks.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. I mean, like, I didn't even know about this. I don't know how many people did or how long it was. I mean, for this to kind of come out of nowhere that this is happening on Tuesday. But anybody that steps up to contribute to that, and if they can get it done, I think that's amazing. I get it though. I get where Briz was coming from last night. I get where you're coming from tonight, Ewok, about saying like, who cares about this non-issue or whatever. But I mean, we're not doing any work. I mean, it's Maddie just asking to pull some money together to have somebody enter an amicus brief. So, I mean, it would be better for this to just be squashed or at the very least contested in some way,
Sure.
if it isn't already.
I get that.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
it'll be interesting. Yeah. Didn't even know about it, but we'll see how that kind of turns out. But yeah, I don't know if we have anything else. I know Richard continued to tweet after that, but I think it's a little bit different topic wise. So, I wanted to see if there's anything else we want to wrap up on. I know I got to head out here in a moment. I think you probably do too. I was just going to say earlier, not to go back on a topic that we kind of finished up with, but I did want to say, I don't know where the guy went. Is that the new tweet that Richard just put out? If you want to go through that, you can. I was trying to scan it well. Yeah.
Well, so he goes on to, when people buy coins you don't hold, often your coins don't go up in value. When others trade coins you hold for other coins, your coins often go down in value. When people launch coins that compete with your coins often don't go up in value. It says one must not rest on one's laurels. If you want to win, you usually must do the winning. If you don't pluck the weeds from your garden will be harmed. What message?
There's a few other ones in there. There's like 6 tweets in that, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
Oh, well, there's a couple. Yeah, I see that now.
He says, when people show coins specifically targeting holders of the coins you hold, your coins often go down in value. When people advertise coins that you don't hold, your coins often don't go up in value. When people only sell and don't buy, it's likely to move price down, not up. So what do people often do in crypto? They tend to amplify messages that might increase the interest in things they care about and de-amplify messages that might increase interest in things they care about. Often by follow, unfollow, block, ghost worked great for Bitcoin. Despite inferior tech, inferior fees, inferior throughput, inferior features, inferior security, I can't say inferior this many times, and a whole bunch of inferior things, the founder abandoned it, you name it. Its toxic maximalism kept people trapped. It's into gains, it seems. Interesting. You said the laurels one. Then he goes on to say one must also be mindful of what media they consume. For you feel what you focus on, and if what you are constantly bombarded with is Sucksville, you're going to have a bad time. As you have a physical diet, you have a mental diet as well. Be mindful of what you eat. I mean, that we talked about that earlier tonight. That last one,
we did.
Yeah, but what do you make of it? What do you think he's focusing on primarily here? And what do you make of this as we get a?
Well, I know exactly what he's saying. he's saying, you guys are focusing on the wrong thing. If you want this ecosystem to go up, you're buying a bunch of other shit, and that's not going to happen. That's exactly what he's saying. I mean, yeah. Are you seeing a different message?
I don't know if that's specifically what he means or not. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's going to go up regardless. I mean, I still think the ecosystem is going to go up. I mean, I definitely understand. And again, I don't even know that this is what he's talking about. But if he's talking about like, oh, you shouldn't be buying things other than Pulse and these the other things that are being built on the chain, maybe that we talked about tonight. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't agree. I mean, if there's action on the chain and people are having fun on the chain, I think that's going to be a good thing. But again, I don't even know if that's what he's talking about. I don't know specifically what angle of it he's talking about.
Well, he says, if you don't pluck the weeds from your garden will be harmed. What messages are you amplifying through your follows? That's yeah. I really think that's what he's saying.
I think it depends on what your definition of negativity is, or like what isn't useful or what isn't helpful, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know specifically what he's talking about. So I don't know. And I'm reacting live, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I know that Richard's never been a huge fan of meme coins.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at, right? Everybody is creating meme coins left and right. How many of these do we really need? And how many people are going to be able to get out on the plus side? It's a net zero game. If one person cashes out, that means 15 people probably lost because there isn't a whole lot of liquidity, right? So it's, you can place your one-sided liquidity game all you want, but in the long run, people are going to probably get hurt from it. They're all that way. So I really think that's what he's basically getting back to the basics of what got us started. When it was just one token, obviously when it was Hex, it was easy, right? We got one token to focus on, one token to buy. We can put a lot of energy into this and have exponential results. Now you've got a whole network and you kind of got to let it grow. you're going to have to let people get hurt. They're going to have to learn their lesson and be like, damn, I wish I wouldn't have sold all that Pulse back then to buy this token that ended up getting rug pulled or went to zero and just never came back, kind of thing. So it's you got to have that kind of course, the natural course for people in every cycle. Now, is that really what he meant? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if there's more to this or not. But I really think that's what he means.
He may mean it, but I mean, like,
he has to be careful.
Again, there's a market. There's a market. I mean, you know, if the market's and
markets tend to become efficient.
Exactly. Yeah. Memes look like the efficiency right now. I don't know. I get it. I mean, I know the guy's never going to be into meme coins. I totally understand that. Why should he be? He shouldn't be. That's not what he, you know, and really at the end of the day, I don't know how many of us are like, oh yeah, that's what I identify with. And that's like my entire being is these memes or whatever, you know what I mean? But it does attract eyeballs. It does attract people in. And, you know, if anybody out there, like, their whole portfolio is consumed by meme coins and nothing else. I mean, yeah, I don't know that you're going to have the greatest time. I mean, you could certainly do well with that based on hitting on a couple, but Richard Hart's not going to be somebody who like comes around to meme coins, you know, and the meme coins aren't going to go away. So, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Exactly, DJ Moonboy. Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I'll have to react to that more. Honestly, it's live and I'm just kind of taking it in right now, but I'm you know, I'm not sure what he's specifically referring to, but people are going to buy memes. I don't think he's going to be able to stop that. So, you know,
no, and I don't think he intends to. It's interesting. He doesn't allow replies to this one either.
Yeah, he didn't on any of the tweets tonight, I don't think, actually. So, yeah. All right. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap us up. We got to a lot of different stuff tonight. Might be a couple things we can carry over to next week. But yeah, as far as crypto right now, I mean, we're still in this pullback probably for a couple of months. We're waiting to see if in the fall maybe we get some more bullish price action. But the big, you know, all eyes really on Ethereum right now. A lot of bullish news over the last couple of nights. We got the ETF, you know, going live by the beginning of July. So yeah, a lot of things on the horizon, lots of things to be excited about, even if we are in just a cool off period right now. So,
I got one last thought, and I don't know if you saw it or not. There was a tweet out there from somebody who said they found a transaction or a set of transactions that was sent to Tornado Cash from the Sacrifice wallet, but it looks like they did a big circle and came right back to the Sacrifice wallet. It was almost like it was like bait. For like $30 million. It ended up going through Tornado Cash and coming right back. It was almost like they baited them into it to the SEC. So I thought that was interesting too. Maybe we can dive into that one a little bit more next week. But
I'd have to look into it a little bit more. I did see somebody tweeting about it, but I didn't see the end result was that it just came back. So that is interesting. Yeah, exactly. Hex girl. Meme coins keep us entertained until Pulse goes up. I mean, maybe with the time frame for Pulse right now, but I mean, across the industry, like meme coins do get people excited. It's just which ones are actually going to catch on and which ones aren't. I mean, again, I would never advocate like you should have this should be the core part of your portfolio. You should have a meme portfolio. That's more of like a whatever B Roots talks about and stuff like that. That's his specialty, you know. But in terms of do they have value? I mean, yeah, people are valuing them, you know. So obviously I want to have my main investments are always going to be Pulse X, Hex, stuff like that. So, you know. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up. We will be here next week, same time, same channel, Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we appreciate all you guys being here. Hex Girl, DJ Moonboy, Bridge, thanks for being here the whole time, man. Acid Thunder, CI, I don't know, Mr. Chinks. Oh yeah, we had Philly back in here again. So thanks a lot. Producer Jake, thank you for producing the show. We appreciate it as always, and we will catch you guys next week. This has been Boi Crypto for Crypto Ewok right here on the Creed of Crypto live stream. See you guys.